banished us forever. But now, finally, we have returned.
Hello and welcome to another Writer's Showcase, everybody. My name is Lord Captain Commander Dunn, and I am joined today by a bunch of very, very fantastic guests. First off, please welcome...
This is a film about space wizards intended for children.
Always a pleasure. All right, let's see. Who else is...
I did not die, Wissia.
Speaking of which, everybody adjust your mics.
I am filled with incredible rage, and you are the reason. I'll let you two decide amongst yourselves who is the reason. Anyway,
It was
hello,
him.
everyone. Yeah, it was
Alrighty.
inspiring.
Alrighty. Let me bring in Yuri.
The actual ethical system that you should all follow is nihilism. The world is empty. There is no point to anything, and you're just gonna die. So do whatever.
Religious
Nice.
talk and Asian chicks. You know, you know me far too well.
Nice to see you got my very first intro.
Oh,
Hello, James
Yeah.
Knighton, Duelist, and Exula.
Oh, hey, Axel's
So,
on. Cool.
yes. Go for it, sorry.
Are these on weekends now? These are now on weekends, Drake, yes.
Sub Codex.
Yeah, I got a new job. Yeah, I got a new job, and
not
now I
on
gotta
night
adjust
shift.
my streaming schedule accordingly. Yeah, I am no longer working the night shift.
That's pretty cool.
I'm working...
That was the time when
Okay.
streams could happen any day.
Yeah, I'm working at 10 to 7.
That's got to be good for you.
I'm working 9 to 7. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
That's
5 days a week?
4.
4?
4 days.
Well, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Are you like in, I want to guess nursing, but there's...
Codex.
No,
You didn't
call
do
center.
anything, mate. I'm just saying hi.
What did I do? You're high or accusational?
You're high or accusational?
Shut the fuck up, okay? I am not currently a coherent speaker.
And you're gonna be
Yes.
reciting a chapter today. You're gonna be presenting a chapter today.
Indeed, I will be.
God damn it! Your dyslexia is starting to infect me as well.
Is it dyslexia or slight lisp?
I don't even know at this point.
You guys have very similar ways of talking.
We do.
Weirding me out. Yeah, I think so, but I don't know. I mean, I could
Oh,
just... It
God.
might just be my my schizophrenia acting up. I mean, you know, schizophrenia does stuff.
You can hear the California.
I was going to say the microphone's talking to me, but I wasn't sure how you guys would take it.
Well, anyway,
Well, we have one cancellation, so there's only 2 more possible guests who may show up.
Yay!
Yeah. Patrick
So-
did. I don't know. All right. So, Ocean here has time limit constraints or time constraints.
Only
Nope.
my patience.
That works.
Yeah.
You can go first then, and we'll just go counterclockwise.
Wow, that worked. I got to figure out what I want to read. I mean, I have like 3 choices, and like I don't know, I'm feeling super self-conscious. So I started reading it, and I started to feel that cringe feeling. It's like, but it's actually they're all decent. They're all decent writings. But are we
Yeah.
more in the mood for sci-fi, kind of like Indian sci-fi, or
Indian
on.
sci-fi.
I didn't know
Well,
that's even a genre.
like the Monkey King? Indian sci-fi.
I have no fucking.
It's not really like yeah.
Me and
Oh,
me and
I
Aspiring
might
over
know
here
what
are
you're.
we're both presenting sci-fi today because that's the only thing we're
Sci-
writing.
Sci-fi fantasy. Are you referring to that Indian thing where there's like the half man, half snake boat versions? One with the snake head and legs, and the other with the snake tail and human body. Is that what you're
I've never
referring
heard
to?
this story. No, I've never heard this story.
Because that's what I thought when you said Monkey King.
The Monkey King. Yeah, so I've got one about the Monkey King. Like he starts under a mountain, and I feel like super self-conscious, and I'm not sure why, but I'm gonna push through on anyone that I decide to do. I think like the most self-contained one I have. I'm all right. I'm gonna go with the most polished one, and that's it's called, well, the story's called The Scavenger Hunt, and I have like a different version of it that I did that I read the other day, and I like more recently I thought was really the cool version, but I think it's not quite as grounded. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go with this one. Final answer. All right. This is chapter 1. The sun is setting in the west over the largest gathering of water in the world. Every stream and river feeds into the ocean, and while there are different parts of it, naming them only makes them seem more distinct. There is no clear line between them, though the waves are like a war zone at Kanyakumari, where the boundaries between the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, and the Arabian Sea famously meet. It's a long commute from there to the middle of the Atlantic, or to Lake Erie, for that matter. Kanyakumari is where the god Hanuman dropped medicine as he flew to Sri Lanka to save Sita, where people go to wash away their sins, where Swami Vivekananda swam a quarter mile through belligerent waves who work in deadly concert with the knives of rocks hiding along the seabed, to meditate on a little island where he had his vision of one India, the flash of insight that shaped modern Hinduism. There is a complex temple there now. The point where he sat for 3 days, for 3 days, is marked with a meditation room. This ocean, this bed where the day is laying down under its warm sky, quilted in phosphorescent patches, red, orange, pink, and purple bluing. The day is stretching out, exhausted head pillowed by the sun, and feet resting on the nearly full moon. This green sea is not Kanyakumari, not even the Indian Ocean, no. This is the Arabian Sea, though some communities of oxygen and hydrogen, no doubt at this very moment, are rapidly hopping the borders of the Sea of Bengal and the Indian Ocean and back, with no one to check their passports, x-ray their belongings, or take pictures of what's under their clothes. They migrate under the unconditionally loving auspices of that great statue of Tiruvallur, the poet saint, which sits atop the island. Some of these communities of microscopic water drops might go airborne out of the sea and into the lungs of a passing sage. The same, or another set indistinguishable from it, might wind its way to the Gandhi Memorial. The great soul's ashes have no doubt taken up residence in the valences of these vaporous nations. No doubt parts of Gandhi have circled the globe a million times, while some have set up homes, even cities, on Ramakrishna's statuesque nose. I may even be breathing in some Gandhi right now, deep into my belly. I wonder how many particles in this breath of air have wended their way through my body in one form or another already, and are just starting their next cycle. But now I am not at Kanyakumari, Tamil Nadu, where the two seas and an ocean meet. I am in Kerala, the month of December. It is not a cold place, but still, this is winter. Night will begin at 6 on perhaps the most important day in history. Time will tell. Now I am doing Qigong. Actually, I am finishing. My mind has wandered a long way. It should be at Dantian, the garden at the base of the belly, where the elixir grows, the center of gravity. I should be thinking about my belly, feeling my belly, and only my belly. So it goes. Now bring your hands to your belly, left and right, Shiva Krishnan. Then very good. Feel your chi flowing to this place as a ball of flame. On the exhale and on the inhale, feel its expansion. There's a brief pause. Exhale. Now feel it. See it. Lit like a sun. Condensing. A deep ball of flame. He pauses for several breaths to let this sink in. Now let this go. Solomon rubs his hands together. Rub your face several times. Not ungently, but firm. Then, rub your fingers through your hair, flicking off the stale energy, and pounding your neck. Good, good. He finishes the routine and then stands up. We're all kneeling in a circle, closing up the evening qigong. The water of the Arabian Sea is particularly sticky. Flies buzz around us as sporadic dots of annoyance. Jolly what? I say, coming straight to my feet after an hour of kneeling and letting the mishmash of pain and pleasure soak back into them with the blood. Not long until we find out if you're just another wanking British fraud like Crowley, or if this business about the spiritual jump you've been going on about is true. Yes, I'm sure it matters, the slanty-eyed limey says dismissively. The important thing is to remember here, Ramadupa, the spiritual shift has been happening gradually since the beginning of time. This is only a major point in the cycle. This is just a spoke in the wheel. Creation rolls on either side. I stomp my feet futilely as I wait for the heavy sizzling in my legs to end. Or perhaps this 2012 business is just a bloody load of bollocks, and that book you put out is not worth as much as my scrotum. I say the last with my imperfect imitation of the Indian accent of a certain Karnakapuli statesman who killed a certain monkey over a particular scrotum quite recently. I've been trying every night for 3 weeks now to use the supposed spiritual effects of the astral alignment to my advantage. No luck. Who on earth would drop a tenner on your scrotum, Dupa? I sure as hell would, I retort, although I'm not sure whatever monkey rips it off will take cash. Shiva Krishnan groans from downward dog, dealing, as we all must, with the feeling that his legs are about to explode in agony. It is the anticipation of that pain, a pain which never actually comes, that I find to be the real core of the discomfort in standing up after a kneeling practice. Why would he when he's already got a meaty banana in his mouth? Monkeys do not think ahead. His Spanish accent is not particularly thick, but his mentality is gloriously so. Hilda asks Solomon, so what is to happen? Would it be good to wake for that night? He shakes his head. Hilda, there is nothing to worry about. If you sleep, then your dreams may be particularly meaningful. If you do not, then maybe your experiences will be. Amma doesn't seem to care what day it is. I point out, Amma does not care what second it is. Solomon leads the walk off of the beach, one step at a time, leaving little divots for tracks in the sand, just like mine and everyone's. They disappear the moment I stop noticing them. Already the trenches of our knees that left in the sand are indistinguishable from the rest of the red beach. A seagull sings a single note, etching the palm trees and the sunset with its song for just that moment. And then the note ends, and the echoes it leaves in my ear are swallowed by the drumming of the sea. Dinner shortly. I haven't had a bite since high tea. Oh yeah, fruit and yogurt, maybe some jaggery. Yum yum. He says yogurt with a short O. I snicker. Brits. So here's the thing, I begin to say, laying out my understanding of this 2012 business. The Earth orbits the sun. Solomon interrupts. Can you prove this? As near as I can see, the sun goes around the Earth, and certainly the world is a circle around myself. Right. I talk him down. The Earth orbits, the sun orbits a hole in space and time. I am using a pair of coconuts to demonstrate for the table the path of the Earth around the sun and the sun around the black hole. My audience consists of some 6 people enjoying the simple art of after-dinner conversation, a ritual for us English-speaking residents of the ashram, where there is little else to do but meditate. Naval contemplation can only take a man so far. Wait, so that hole at the top of the coconut, with the straw sticking out, is that a black hole, the black hole that's going to kill us all? Solomon cuts in mock shock and terror. I choose to ignore him this time. The sun, right now, is here, in the northern hemisphere of the Milky Way, still just barely. We are on the edge of the equator. Shiva Krishnan chimes in. Oh, that's why it's so warm. He, too, is a mocker. No, Shiv, it's so warm because we're in southern India. Will you gentlemen please let me get to my point? What is this me you speak of? And more importantly, perhaps, given the dire straits in which this me seems to be finding itself, what is the point? Solomon asks me over the thick steam of his teacup. In my mind, he is already out of the lecture, dead to me. A ghost. The point is that the only non-imaginary of fact that I can possibly see from this 2012 hullabaloo is that when the Earth crosses this equator, as it is apt to, being connected to the sun, as it is, I motion with my coconuts, is that on one hand, and I arrive at this through syllogism, it may begin to spin the other way, the Australian toilet effect, or 2, that the poles will reverse. They've reversed in the past. It seems to me there should need to be some sort of impetus for that sort of thing. And the passing over the equator seems like just the thing. Bravo, bravo, Solomon puts on his American accent. Shit, man, we're in trouble, aren't we? Solomon, these things I can see. I can actually imagine the Earth shifting its rotation, or else flipping on its axis. In my mind's eyes, I can see the planets all lining up like toy soldier dominoes. But there's not a single interview in that damn book of yours that makes any sense to me. Solomon has come into some recent wealth, comparatively. You must not lust after results, he says with a snaky grin. But this sort of his situation, this astral configuration, is not going to come along again in my lifetime. It would seem to me that one should take advantage of it. I am tempted to tell them that I have been trying my hand at time travel. Do you ever listen to anything I say? He plays exasperation as only the British can. I am in my flat. For just around 1,000 USD, and with the right friends, you too can own a modest-sized condo in the home of the world's strongest incarnation of the Devi. 3 free meals a day if you can stomach Indian food for 3 meals a day. Western food costs money. You might like Indian food. You might think this is a great deal, but one needs the. But you should know that one needs the culinary fortitude of a monk to stand tall against the barrage of watery rice with fried, stewed, and spiced vegetables. There is nothing better than Indian food once in a while. I put the stone around my neck. It dangles over my heart. It costs nearly as much as my flat. They say it came from the moon, or was the moon. Maybe they said this because it was true. This is unlikely. What is true is that it is a very remarkable stone. It does have some connection to the moon. How do I know this? I know it. That is how I know it. I believe it. What else matters? For my purposes, nothing. It settles over my heart. I'd wandered away from the group during the middle of bhajans. It seemed like the appropriate time to leave. I felt it. I can still hear the inscrutable songs of praise to God, to life, to existence, shaking the skyscraping monastery from my room on the 20th floor. They tug at my soul. I lay down in corpse pose. All right, I think that's a fair enough place to pause. How long was that? I mean, this is like part of a larger thing. I'm sure eventually
Let's
I'll get an
see.
answer.
We're
about 20
currently
minutes.
at, yeah.
It was like 15 minutes.
About 20 minutes.
Let's see. So the next section's not as long, and it kind of gives a better sense as to what the story's doing. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll leave off. I'm on my back.
How much time?
Is that all right? Or because
I'm just thinking
it was
how
like
to get it.
14 minutes. No, the next section is like page and a half.
Okay, that's
Well,
fine.
it
Go for it.
All right. I'm on my back. I put my hands down on a thick straw mat a comfortable distance from my sides, palms up. This is where I meditate and sleep. Simplicity is the father of discipline, the mother of retention. The ceiling, looking at it from this angle, could be a floor. I close my eyes. Behind them is not blackness. The room goes away, but there's still points of vibration in my field of vision. Some of them are red, like pools of water, with worms moving around inside of them. Some of them are blue or yellow. I stop differentiating the colors. There is only what I see. I breathe in, like a balloon that fills itself. I let go, and my body shoots around the room. Another slow, easy breath and a collapse. After a third, I let my body take the breath itself. I am the highest point of my head. Mathematically, you can fit an infinite number of points on the tip of a pin. A straight line is the only distance between 2 points. There is no limit to the number of lines which can dissect a circle. I become a nomadic colony of circles, spilling from my head through the planes of my brain. A swarm of horseback, scalp-locked Cossacks charge snoring through the gluey steps beneath the throat and between the nostrils to the foothills of the spine. Rhesus monkeys dance a calypso along its meridians, sailing like swans through those channels within my vertebrae. A waterfall. Beavers come floating to the surface of my navel and burrow through the dams in my abdomen. They break into snakes which swallow my ribs all the way back to my spine. I am liquid light. I splash down to my toes and back up, feeling every edged, cornered nerve explode and then implode, and then explode and then implode, then both at once. I rock from toes to head and head to toes, and finally, my skin, skull, teeth, eyes, nails, and everything between evaporates into stars. They twist and turn in some equation that needs no fathoming, to wrap and circle orbits with each other. They sing a silent song with no composure. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, body to light. My breath is my body. My thoughts are spasms in my brain, points of tension, dissolving like puddles under a magnifying glass. Whole as the ocean, my blood pumps in full note waves. The stone is a hole on my floor, and I start swirling in. I am a cyclone funnel pulling an oil black silence, emptying myself. The silence swishes in my chest, replaces me, and I am uprooted into that cold white stone. Slowly the body Ramadupa is drained of life, and the stone is Ramadupa. Being a stone is different from being a person. I have done it before. I got this far last week. So excited, I sat bolt upright on my mat. So much for projecting. It was frustrating. Curb that. My walls are layered cells. Each block holds more blocks, but between the blocks are tunnels too small for the naked eye. I exist within those spaces. This is the problem. I am a little piece of rock, although that rock is the moon. The moon. I am the moon. Gray and cold with no atmosphere. All I have is a reflection of the sun. I shed myself for the sun. Immolation, immolation, immolation. Hallelujah. And with the speed of light, the sun swallows me. I am the cold space between soul and the moon's atmosphere, just long enough to empty into it. I am groundless, bottomless fear, and then Ra, bleeding ecstatically out into space, the eternal sound of heat and life and joy, the churning stomach heart factory. It takes millions of years for a fleck of my light to escape, and less than a touching beat for entering forms, digestion, incorporation, hydrogen, cells, infecting, inflecting, inspecting the planets. Mercury pulls me free, as though to say, you don't want to be there, brother. Don't you know that if it was a good place to be, I'd have hopped right in eons ago, and Mother Earth right with me? There's a reason she keeps her distance, you know. Come now, what are you trying to do? I am Mercury. You are not me. Quit that nonsense, little brother. Now, where are you going? I'll get you there, I swear. I fear to wake. No worries. You've put yourself out pretty deep, child. You'll be asleep till old soul comes to wake you. Now, would you be so kind as to talk to me? Open your eyes. It's polite. Not only that, but it's a hell of a great view. I open my eyes. I've finally done it then. Light comes flooding in, every color at once. The light resolves. Done what? I walk on shiny, thick gray water. No, liquid silver. I look around for the source of the voice. Snakes of molten metal rise at my feet, hissing amicably, their heads circling one another, their bodies merge into the figure of a smiling human. Is this better? All the teeth are shimmering silver. They are the white of bone. Yes, I think it is. So I've done it then. We've said this already. What are you trying to do? Oh, sorry, it's hard to explain in words. I thought you was some kind of poet. Not a very good one. That's not your honest opinion. I'm trying to travel into the future. Well, then you've been succeeding at that your whole life. You're succeeding now. I'm trying to travel into the future and then come back. Ah, I see. How exactly do you intend to be doing this? Well, I thought I would use that. I thought that the alignment with the galactic rift and all, I could sort of slingshot around that, like Crichton tried to do with the sun in Farscape, and wind up back in my body in the morning. It was Earth, actually, and Crichton tried to slingshot around Earth, and he wound up going through a wormhole and traveling to the other end of the universe. The science there was way off, but that's unimportant. Exactly how are you planning to do this? Well, I figured that if I could pass an orbit between the stone I bought and that cosmic black hole at the center of the galaxy, I might be able to go around it at the speed of thought and thus come back maybe 300 years or so in the future. And the purpose of this is what? To make money? Laughter, gibbles, waves across the surface of Mercury. The purpose is adventure, knowledge, growth, I retort. No, you want to be a prophet. You want to come back with the knowledge of the future and be respected, loved, followed for it. You want to be a celebrity. The smile gets bigger. I think I can help you out. You're mighty obliging for a pagan god. Don't I owe you payment? What do you think I am? Regardless, I help you for the sake of adventure. And I will take from you what I want, no matter what you want. But hush now. You won't know the difference. I wonder how Mercury is going to help me. Step 1 was getting into the stone. Step 2 was shooting from the stone towards the moon and slingshotting around it to do the same with Venus and then Mercury, and then ride the waves of the sun past Mars, around Jupiter and the outer planets, building momentum and using the stars along the way to the rift in the same way until finally passing around it fast as insanity, and following the stone which held me back to earth at unpronounceable speeds. That never worked for so many reasons, I'm told. But if going around the planets gives you enough structure to keep your mind together, then more power to you, brother man. Though I'd apologize to Luna along the way for thinking you were her, were I you. She doesn't seem like it. She's quite proud. Also, it's best you don't let Mars think you're weak. Yeah, you'll figure it out. Quick as silver. I'm swallowed by the surface, and I am Mercury. No, you're not. And spit out in like a cannonball towards the distance. Where am I going? Faster and faster I'm going. Cheerio, soul brother. Oh, and don't let Venus pull you in. The words follow me like a mantra follows silence. She's a fly trap. All right, that was the end of it. And that probably did go a bit long. Apologies, I underestimated. Well, okay, maybe 24 minutes total, I think, because like it was definitely like 6 to 10 minutes in when we started. You know.
Okay.
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
We have a pirate.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, no, probably not indeed. In imagination.
Eh.
Well, no, I guess if you're like on Pirate Bay and what have you. Like, you know.
Okay.
Oh, I'm perpetually on the high sea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough then.
Like most people in regards to bad media, they want to watch but don't want to pay money for.
Yeah, that's the easy joke. Anyway, yeah, so that was a bit difficult for me to follow personally, but at the same exact time, I've also taken a class on Hindu studies, like actually studying the religion. And to be frank, Hinduism as a religion is kind of difficult in general. It's very elaborate with multiple sources, and studying it is it's quite the challenge, you know.
Yeah, no, they've got like so many different schools, and like there's no definitive thing except that you kind of got to be Indian, kind of, not exactly, but it's just like
kinda,
yeah.
If you're in the know, you're in the know, essentially. And I commend you, good sir, for trying to adapt it into a work of fiction.
Thank you.
Now, as for my thoughts on the quality of said work of fiction, I think it's pretty good. I don't quite understand what exactly is happening as far as the plot is concerned, and I think that might be more due to me kind of half being there and half not. I did have to use the restroom about 3/4 of the way, so I might be missing something.
Yeah, it would probably help if it was being read as opposed to like listened to as well. Like that's like I felt kind of shy parts of it reading is like this just doesn't make sense. Like this would take like reading it and then like reread, you know, in order to understand what's being said.
Yeah, I mean, your attitude kind of also the attitude you go in with it kind of defines how you go out, how you come out of it. You know, you get what was the phrase again? You get out of it what you put into it. So, yeah, confidence is just a thing that most people who come on to these presentations have to work on when it comes to presenting their works.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely having issues with confidence lately. It's like the second I started opening these up, I was like, whoa, I am feeling like, yeah, and I just gotta like slow down, and I definitely rushed the second part.
Yeah. So what I've learned that helps is reading it beforehand, so that way you can, you know, get the feel for it. So that way before you go on to the podcast and you start reading the stuff aloud, you already have an idea as to how it flows, and you could even you are even able to catch yourself and any fumbles in the text. And when I say reading beforehand, I mean reading it aloud.
Yeah, I got you. It's been a while since I read this one.
Alright, no worries. Yeah, unfortunately, outside of that, I didn't really catch much other than this was a meditation session of some kind. We have this character. He has a stone around. He's got like a moonstone necklace, and yeah,
Yeah.
he's trying to do things like I don't know how to describe it.
Right, yeah. It's something to do with
I'm just gonna
time
stop.
travel. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna stop over here before I embarrass myself any further.
No, thank you. That was helpful feedback.
I got I was a little bit confused as to the setting. That was something that I was kind of like, okay, so they're monkeys, and they're in 2012. I was kind of, huh? And they're talking about astronomy. I was kind of a little bit lost there, I must admit.
Yeah, it is in 2012.
Okay.
The monkeys, I think there was, like the kind of the psychic shift that he went into with like the time travel or like the flying through the planets thing. Yeah, I think next week I'll try the other. Like I have a different version that I came across, and it might be better. Because like the story I've been working on, like it's from a sci-fi, so it's like a future. He goes in the future, and like that's a sci-fi universe I came up with when I was like 12 or something. And then it's just like kind of grounded it in like this main character is like a yogi and like using mystical stuff to travel in the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
I picked up on that bit at the end over there. So you did a good job explaining, somewhat of a good job of explaining what was going on. But I'm also going to pin any failures to understand on my end because of my piss poor attention. We'll split attention, really.
Yeah. All right. So it felt like an essay. I guess I think maybe opening up with that like long kind of sort of just meandering philosophical thing. Axela probably turned you off to begin with. Yeah, I wrote this like more than 10, probably at least 10 years ago, maybe a bit more.
Yeah, it's
Wait, you wrote
important to. Sorry, go on.
You wrote this 10 years ago?
Yeah, I wrote this ages ago. I haven't written anything too recently.
Damn.
That's actually really
My advice
impressive.
would be, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm 34, so not as impressive as you guys might think.
I mean, still. How long have you been doing this?
Writing?
Yeah.
Since I was kind of little. I first started doing like poetry and stuff when I was in middle school, writing stories and stuff, and like late middle school, high school.
Well, okay. If you really feel passionate about this specific project, I would advise revisiting it and refining it, because it's been like 10 years since you last worked on this thing. So obviously you've probably picked up some new lessons here and there, some more things you can implement into the work to make it flow better and make it more captivating even.
Yeah.
So
I might even just restart, like not exactly restart, but like I think.
I mean, if you have to redraft it. That's my piece of advice, because I've redrafted my book a few times already.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Addo?
Not really.
I read through it too quickly to catch anything, or it just didn't have any kind of.
Okay, I might be Indian. I am ignorant on pretty much all of it. Okay, I am just fucking lost.
So like none of it made any sense because I started with the big long meandering thing about molecules and stuff, and right, is that kind of what I'm hearing?
I kind of felt like I didn't necessarily have a character conflict to latch onto.
Yeah, this is what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
With
Mm.
this particular submission.
It's what makes exposition so difficult. You need a narrative for it to. You need to weave a narrative amongst the exposition for it to feel somewhat natural and for the audience to actually follow along with it. Otherwise, it will. Otherwise they have nothing to invest in as they're going through it. They have no reason to learn the information.
Right. Did you catch any of it, Mr. Pirate? Or I looked like you popped in afterward.
Yeah, I got in towards the end there, and I heard some talk about past and future, and I was vaguely reminded of The Master with Philip Seymour Hoffman and his like speech about time being a river. Anyway, yeah, from the bits I understood, and I kind of get what they're pointing out from like the end part that I joined in at. There seemed to be a narrative there, it just didn't seem to be focused as much. But then again, I only got there towards the end, so that's I won't talk too much. But what I was talking about generally about the narrative and exposition, that's more of a general thing to keep in mind when you're writing. Yeah,
no, that's good advice. Narrative and exposition, like that is the core thing. Like I didn't develop the character very much. It does get more developed as the whole thing goes, but I definitely, it was just like a lot of like, masturbating onto the page is what I noticed reading that. I was rather proud of some of the turns of phrase and stuff, but it doesn't work on its own.
It's what makes a book like the Satanic Verses quite difficult to read, because it can be so abstract at times that you kind of get lost in the whole philosophy of it, that you forget that there's an actual story.
That's Salman Rushdie?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Like I thought he wrote something that was like essays or something. I don't even know what he wrote. I know he probably shouldn't have read it.
Oh no, it put him into hospital.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just like all he did was poke a bear that had a toothache. So,
but Satanic Verse is a very surreal book. There is a narrative in it, and you kind of see it from like the first couple of pages, but the first couple of pages paint a very good picture of what that book is like, and you can understand like whether you'd want to read on from that, because it's just more of that first page.
Is the main character like the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him?
I don't know. I only stuck around for the first couple of chapters, and I couldn't stay for all of it, so I can't comment on it.
Yeah,
it's a difficult book to read.
Yeah, it's like trying to read like Gravity's Rainbow or something.
If you guys have Audible, you can listen to Satanic.
Yeah, the Satanic Verses, that anti-Islamic book, correct?
Allegedly.
All right. Oh, one more thing. Yuri, quick sanity check. Prithvi is the name of the goddess of the earth in Hindu beliefs, correct?
Prithvi?
Yes.
Quite possibly. I'm not like super versed. And it's like the goddess of the earth. Like, so there's like various different pantheons and stuff,
Yeah, she's just she's the embodiment of the earth. Or something like that.
Maybe. I've never seen her come up in any stories.
All right.
Prithvi Mata. Yeah, it's like. Yeah, I imagine. Like, I mean, I'm more versed in like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, and like kind of the more human gods, really.
Okay, that's fair.
But, but I don't know. It's all like a blob of stuff. There's Hinduism's super cool, and there's just so many angles to it.
Yeah, like
and
I
the
said, it's very
asceticism.
complicated.
Like
Yeah, it's
my
a
goal
very
with this
complicated
story
religion.
was to kind of go into like a sci-fi / magic, but based on like ascetic, sort of like timeless spiritual principles rather than rational materialism. Like that was kind of the whole thing. It's almost like C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, I think, was a heavy influence. And maybe I'll rewrite. I'll actually try and write something now, like to put this into better terms, and then read it next time.
All right,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I think the one thing to just keep in mind is that people gravitate to characters first, to concept second.
Mm.
And it seems like you have a very high concept, and you've spent a lot of time developing that, but the characters haven't necessarily been as well developed. At least that's the feeling that I got out of it.
Yeah, the characters are the heart of any story. If you don't,
Well, I mean,
really
the
have
actual
much of a
characters are in the future, and we haven't met them yet. Like that's,
That's fair.
So like that's kind of a problem in the whole thing too. And like the other one I was thinking about reading, the other version that I have, is like it just starts with the whole go straight into him jumping into the future and then meeting these characters, and then he's amidst all this sci-fi wars, like Mars being invaded and like a Korean settlement on Mars that they go and visit, and like all kinds of like it's a lot. I read it and I thought, oh, this is better, but then I decided to go with the other one because it was easier to find a stopping point. And also because like I felt like when I don't know, I have weird feelings towards it. But anyway, it's I feel my narcissism is fully fed. Do you have something to say, Adam?
Okay.
All right.
I think, yeah, I'm sorry. You can do what you want. I think that's what he said.
Oh, okay. Wait, what now?
So I think he can do as he wants. I think that's what Valerian said. Sorry, Valerian. You might as well just be writing in Chinese for all that we understand you're typing. You really need. Yeah, you should probably get the keyboard replaced. Since we legit cannot understand anything you're typing. I'm very sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Broken keyboard, you fix that immediately. You don't sit around and wait on that. Especially if you're a writer.
Especially if your job requires tech stuff.
Yep.
Like, what did you do to break it in such a way where it produces discs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really wish that was it, because that is such a weird problem.
Because I've had my B key broken, but that doesn't cause discs.
Yep. Anyway.
I mean, it could just be a case of he just takes all the keys off and just cleans the keyboard itself. You gotta like take the keys off, clean the bottom, take that bit off, unscrew. Basically, you have to take the keyboard apart and just clean the whole thing.
Yeah, that's probably what it needs to do.
Because like he's not having an issue with typing. He's typing the wrong things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good question. Would you say that you're trying to write for yourself or for an audience, Yuri? Oh, for posterity? Okay.
For posterity. No, I don't know. I'm too autistic and to be able to tell the difference. Yeah, I know. I think more awareness of the audience would be an valuable. I think the concept I wrote is pretty interesting, but it's got to be. I've got to think of like the person that is reading it as much as anything else.
You have to also consider the fact that you need to build a character into your concept that's engaging. It's a big one.
Swear to God, the Industrial Revolution and its consequences were a disaster for humanity.
I agree.
Avant-garde. Yes, I believe that he can do avant-garde, but you need a good character in the avant-garde stuff. You can't really do anything that doesn't have a good character or character focus in it.
So none of the interactions between the characters were particularly engaging for anyone. I take it then.
I didn't feel like there was a sense of character about a very firm sense of them. No, I didn't get really a sense of what their characters were. I got the sense of like some psychedelic stuff, but I couldn't really tell you much about the character, unfortunately.
Gotcha. That's all right. Thank you guys very much for your feedback.
These are all things.
No problem.
And do advisement.
Yeah, of course. And of course, these are all things that can be easily fixed. You just need to take some time, workshop the characters, figure out what kind of archetype you're going to go for, and play with the archetype, figure out what you want to do.
It does feel Sisyphean at times coming on here and having to redo what you've already done, but don't worry, it's all part of the process. Eventually, you will not feel like you need to keep redoing everything always.
Eventually, you'll learn to redo it before you even come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
All right. Fanatic, would you like to be next, or would you like a little bit of time?
No, I'm ready now. Mine's a pretty short one. It will be over quick. I can guarantee that.
Okay.
No. Okay.
All right. Take a sip of my drink. All right. Let's begin. All right, this one is called Falling Blocks. It's a short story. All right. Consider these blocks here. Dr. Sheldon's thin finger was aimed at the monument of his life's work. Perhaps an assassination of a political figure or an insurgent rebellion? George Dornell looked on, eyes furrowed and his arms folded over his chest. Harry Sheldon pressed on. Those are insignificant events, I think you'll agree. We're still faced with the same problem, the same question. No matter which blocks you consider, higher or lower, the question remains the same because it's not about the events, rather than nature. Surely, the lower blocks are more critical to the structure, so you'd want to see how those are removed first? The higher ones only serve as stalling for time in the grand scheme of universal momentum. Therein lies the misconception, the devaluing of the higher blocks as if they serve no purpose at all. Their purpose is most crucial of all, for without them, we would have shaky foundations indeed. What do you mean? The purpose of the higher blocks is simply to reinforce the ones below it. Let's say that this one here is a political scandal, or perhaps a tragedy of some kind. On their own, they do nothing. They serve nothing. They are simply removed and forgotten. The tower is as it once was. Sheldon drew his finger up and carried an intense gaze at George. Not true. The tower has changed. It would look the same, but with 2 blocks removed. How might that affect the tower, but aesthetically? It may seem that way, but you are yet to realize it, so I shall stop stalling. These higher blocks here, loose remnants of our society, easily dismantled and discarded. His finger traced a line down the tower. And these ones below, they all stabilize the core foundation, here. His digit shook, but the indication was clear. He pointed at the lowest blocks of the tower. When we remove the higher blocks, it becomes easier to loosen the ones below from their places. You are right in suggesting that if you remove the lower blocks, the tower would more easily fall. but you do not value these blocks in the role they play in helping the removal of those more critical blocks. How does a political scandal erode our core? I thought you'd know the answer, but it seems this analogy isn't as obvious to others as to me. When the scandal happens, we might feel the aftershocks for perhaps a month, maybe 2 at most. Beyond that, the event goes forgotten, and the world moves on like it never happened. Something has happened. Our foundation has been chipped away. This block, while it may not result in meaningful change following it immediately, the core has been destabilized. What's this question you mentioned? It seems so long ago. Well, the better identifies a conundrum. As I say, these higher blocks destabilize the core. I use this analogy because it is rather apt in explaining this. We see each block as detached from one another, and that is until its removal is drastic enough that we begin to notice the tower shaking. These higher ones are harder to predict because they all contribute to the destabilization one way or another. The conundrum is then, which ones are the most crucial? George scoffed. You must be tricking me, Doctor. What else have we been discussing? These blocks at the top, while I grant destabilize those below, the ones directly beneath the top layer. They are more important. They must be. You're right. They are more important. But how do we know which ones we should keep an eye on and which ones are too important to remove? This is where I must bring in another analogy. It will demonstrate this better. Sheldon brought forth more items and stood them up in a line. If one falls, it lands on the one in front, and so on, until the whole line comes crashing down. This first piece is the one we must identify, because without it the column I've set up here would remain standing. Take these pieces and apply them to our tower. So you're saying these higher blocks could make the ones below fall? Yes. The Doctor relaxed inside. The tower works because the blocks are disconnected, and this is how we see events, unless we can see the chain that led to them. The problem is that by the time we notice the chain, it's already in motion and pulling down more blocks than we can stabilize. This is the work we devote ourselves to. Break the chain. Stop the fall. Sheldon looked at the blocks they'd removed and placed on the desk. Ultimately, it may be futile. How so? Consider our galactic empire, great as it ever was, efficient, communicable, and profitable. Millennia of development culminating in this beacon of human ingenuity. Imagine the tower we must construct to represent such a thing. How many blocks we'd need to visualize it. Somewhere on it is our place. We don't know how high or low the block we reside in is situated. Our tower is far too big to see it. The blocks would be removed, one by one from the top, slowly loosening the others. We would see them falling, but we're blind to the effect they have. How would you know which block was the inception point? When is the right moment to act? Imagine the fall of this great empire taking place over millennia. How might we know it? I can tell you that we would know for sure once our tower begins to lean. And we're done.
That's actually very impressive.
Yep, that was actually pretty good. I like that.
It's an interesting political metaphor. I liked how you constructed it.
Yeah.
Also, in answer, Yuri, yes, they are playing Jenga.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. It wasn't space Jenga, it was just Jenga.
Yeah, but it's kind of applying the metaphor of Jenga to something like the Galactic Empire. I'm shamelessly ripping off Foundation from Asimov.
Yeah, no, I definitely got big Asimov vibes. So I did space out in the middle for a minute, for which I apologize. So it was basically was just kind of describing. It was using the Jenga game as a metaphor for how the empire could be toppled. And
yes,
I didn't get a sense of any characters, which don't have to be there. I imagine this is a second or third chapter of something, or
no. This is the entire story. This is the short story. This is it by itself.
Self-contained.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just two people playing Jenga and discussing the collapse of a galactic empire.
I would say the framing is more. It's like taking Jenga, right? And the idea of like it's not. Story itself isn't just a metaphor. The Jenga blocks themselves are a metaphor for like the empire itself. The tower is the empire, and each block represents something. It might be an event, or it might be something else. Anything that might destabilize the tower. And as you're playing Jenga, you might be thinking, oh, like when you're playing the game Jenga itself, you might be removing one of the blocks at the bottom, thinking that you're making it more difficult for your opponent. But if you're removing the ones from the top, you're basically lowering the amount of weight on the ones at the bottom. It's kind of the whole strategy behind playing the game of Jenga, but I'm taking that concept of the Jenga blocks and kind of applying it to, imagine you're using these Jenga blocks to predict, like, events are happening. At what point would you say to, like, the government and say, we need to act in this way to stop this, because if we don't stop this, it leads to the fall of the empire.
Yep.
That's the game.
I mean, I didn't really have much of a problem with the repetitive use of the word block. I mean, how else do you describe it? However, I can also see why Trip was a bit distracted by it.
She gave, I think, some suggestions, like segment.
Or piece, you know? Because these are pieces.
Pieces
Yeah,
could be.
Yeah, piece, segment, section. Those are 3 suggestions she gave for other than block.
Yeah.
To put
Overall-
in variation.
Overall, I really did like all of that. It's clear that there is a master-student dynamic over here at play, as one is explaining how politics works to the other. And I definitely like the analogy and how it was implemented. Very outside the box, if you will.
A metaphor in a metaphor.
Yes.
Very creative, I must say.
Thank you. Would you believe me if I told you this was a mix of, like, while watching a video of, I think it was a TikTok video of a guy talking about beavers and how important they are to the Earth's ecology, and while also having just read Foundation by Asimov.
I haven't read that, so I don't know, but honestly, I could believe any inspiration.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my entire story is inspired by an edgy Korean RPG, MMORPG. So, there you go. There's that.
Yeah. I'll link the video later. Yeah.
Nice, Nate. Yeah.
It's a good video. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Aspiring, your turn.
All right. All right, little recap. Last chapter was Preeminent or Orden Ran communing with the rest of his council of the dissenters to decide whether or not he can be allowed to meet with Vampra, one of the leader of the Angels, and see whether or not she is defected and try and convince her to assist them or join them. And so now we get to see that meeting since the council agreed. Wrong page. Vampra waited alone in the medical bay. She had watched as the anarchist squad had cleared the ship of anything of value, leaving nothing they weren't willing to sacrifice. They had told her to stay where she was, and she hadn't protested. When they called Nala away, she nodded for her to follow them. Nothing would be gained by making things difficult. She would try and check on her later if she could. Looking down at her bare hand, Vampire was reminded of the naked feeling within her. They had left her with her clothes and boots, and she'd kept her mask. When the messy-haired human asked for it, she'd given him a glare that made him immediately rescind the request. But the feeling did not arise from an issue of modesty. She and her siblings had been forced to continue battles without a stitch as they survived and healed from what their gear could not, and barely gave it any thought. No, what made her feel naked was the helplessness. Without weapons, without souls, and most importantly, without purpose. Even if taken prisoner and stripped of anything she could use, she would have at least have had that, the drive to escape back to her people, the safety. She had to continue to live, to fight. Now there was none of that. She was as alone as anyone could be. No allies, surrounded by those that saw her as an enemy, and nowhere to return to. There's still Cassidy to... No. She couldn't think of that now. Not yet. Focusing back on the medical bay, her gaze stayed on the mattress which Yellow Maquis had laid in. She had noticed a slight glow emanating from her at moments. They probably thought her clueless on her nature as her guard, despite her injury, but she'd seen those with similar abilities before, though few and far between. Like the Solstice Future Sight, she had no idea where they originated, and the sources hadn't answered when asked. Back then, she thought perhaps they didn't know themselves, but now... Her thoughts were taken away as a figure appeared in the medical bay. Not through the entrance. They were simply there, without a sound, and more suddenly did something that had popped. Seeing who it was, Vampire narrowed her eyes and stood, her own height matching his. In a uniform decorated with wavy silver lines and swirls across the chest and shoulders that contrasted against the black, Orden Ran, known as Preeminent of the Anarchists, stood with his arms behind his back, contemplating her with his red eyes. He carried no weapon that she could see, but they both know he didn't need one. A full mind host, a full space host, a full energy host, and a part soul host like she, he was a weapon in his own right. In the Angel's numerous attempts on his life, he had always managed to escape them, if not get the upper hand. And now he was meeting with her, without any souls to protect herself. Still, she met his eyes as firmly as his. "Here we are," Preeminent said, his voice neutral but concealing a touch of danger. "Leader of the Dissenters and leader of the Angels of the Executor." "Former Angel," she corrected. "Really?" He raised an eyebrow. "I guess the sources must have missed your resignation, because we have heard little about that." Vampire narrowed her eyes. "I doubt it's something they would want to announce." "Yes, it does sound like them. I guess you would also say it sounds like them to not have released your identity or description to the Fardan authorities for their search. Or to have ended their initial search for you on Shea Prime and not start another." Preeminent shrugged. "I personally find that suspicious, to say the least." Keeping her expression still, Vampire's mind was racing. The Fardan authorities hadn't been looking for her. Perhaps that's how she managed to get by with such a pitiful disguise, but why would Mark not have told them about her? Surely her having tried to kill him and his near death would have made it clear any familial restraint between the two was long gone. And what of the sources not searching for her? Did that mean she wasn't a fugitive? There was no other way to see what had transpired as anything but her betraying them. They had to know. So what would be the point of not taking action? Was it perhaps in this very meeting happened? Yeah. Was it perhaps in case this very meeting happened? Did they predict how much intel the anarchists would gather and hope to use this as a way to create further distrust between them? Or was it something simpler? Did the sources believe she'll eventually return to them, at least so she could demand answers, and thought not to impede that? If Mark had now revealed even a hint of her betrayal to the Fardan authorities, could he have decided to downplay the seriousness to the sources, so they believed the chance that she would return to the fold? Surprised us when we found out as well, Preeminent intruded into her thoughts. Frowning, Vampire put her considerations into the back of her mind. Jen felt any touch on her mind. Had she slipped and let him read her emotions? No, I didn't read you, Preeminent assured her, seemingly belaying the very comfort he was trying to provide. I just wanted to see if there was something you were expecting. And I say by your reaction, you didn't. You seem to take it for granted that I wouldn't have known beforehand. How? She cut off. Nala. You read Nala. Preeminent grimaced. Yes. I've been warned about the unreliability of a child's memories, especially a frightened child's, but they neglected to mention how vivid it could be. Expression returning normal, he raised an eyebrow at her. She somehow managed to remember you as even taller than you already are, among other things. Cute. Grandpa racked her memory to remember all Nala had seen of her. There had been their initial meeting on Diolandia outpost, her questioning them in the cell, her interrogating the scientist. She wasn't at the cargo bay. Her shoulders relaxed only to tense again. Jan realized that had been what she was worried about, or that she was even worried in the first place. If you've been through Nala's memory, why are you here? I've heard what happened from my commanders, from Nala's memory, and your own limited accounting of events. Enough to paint a broad picture, but all of those only bring up the question, why? Why now? You know why. You saw me find out. A slight frown flashed for just a moment. You mean when you interrogated the scientist? How much did you know before then? She let out a frustrated sigh, frustrated at herself. Nothing. Then what did you think happened to hosts? Vamper raised a questioning eyebrow. You didn't get that from her memory? Preeminent shook his head. Like I said, child's memories. Not always the most reliable of memory. Nodding, secretly pleased, Vamper said, I knew the sources didn't have control over the birth of more hosts, and that we'd take the more powerful ones to be trained like I was. That was it. And the host you helped capture or execute? Or try to, at least? He smiled slightly at the last bit. No hard feelings, of course. She didn't return it. Fugitives. All of them. Or at least, that is what I was told. Hesitating, she then added, I believe they tasked Mark with the others without my knowledge. And you just never thought to look further into it. Vamper went silent. The truth was, no, she hadn't looked further into it. The sources had told her what they were doing. She had fought alongside enough hosts to not disbelieve it, then she had her orders. Time for investigating such matters were few and far between, even if she had considered doing so. I'll take that as a no. And now that you know, I guess I'm no longer a fugitive, do you? Vamper scoffed. You're an anarchist. That hasn't changed. The Phillies finally showed a reaction that didn't immediately disappear, eyes widening and flaring. His right hand stiffened into a claw, and the air around it started to warp as heat emanated from it. After all you've heard, you still think us criminals? Now that you know what we stand against, the atrocities committed right under everyone's nose, you think us wrong? You dare imply what we fight for unjust when you yourself turned away from what you stood for? His voice filled the room, his voice raised without a yell or a shout. The source's crimes don't change what the anarchists are, a name rightly earned for what you hope to accomplish. Vamper spoke calmly, looking Preeminent straight in the eye, unfazed by his anger. You wish to bring down the ascending territory and all it's made, something which would only bring chaos, if not war. So you still side with the ascending territory after everything you know? Vamper shook her head. The ascending territory and the sources are not the same thing. The sources control everything in the ascending territory. He still glared at her, but he was no longer sounding indignant. The sources have absolute authority in the ascending territory, but they have not been exercising that control less and less over the centuries. Remove the sources, and the ascending territory will survive, after some difficulty. Preeminent's expression had returned to a neutral calm, but she could see him considering what she'd said, turning it over in his head. So you want to remove the sources? Vamper blinked. That hadn't been what she expected. And she found herself without an answer. She still didn't know what she planned to do after this. But why ask that specifically? You have a suggestion. It wasn't a question. Bowing his head, he offered a hand to her. I'd offer to join the dissenters, but I suspect you wouldn't accept, would you? My loyalties leaving one does not mean they transfer to another. I won't help a cause that will accomplish as much debt as what you hope to solve. But we agree the sources have to be dealt with. After a moment, he replied, yes. Then help us do so. We plan to strike at Mirage within a standard month. At the Royal Gathering, Vampire guessed. It was the only notable time within the next month an opportunity would arise. Preeminent pursed his lips. I guess there isn't a way to keep you from figuring it out. Yes, we plan on attacking at the Royal Gathering. It's one of the few times she's reliably away from the security of her palace, and without much surrounding security following her. Among your opportunities, the Royal Gathering's far from the worst, Vampire agreed. How long have you been preparing? Not very, Preeminent admitted reluctantly, eyes darting away for a moment. Which is why I'm asking you to, if not join us, assist us with this. Help the anarchists, something she never thought she would do. Attempt to assassinate a source, something else she thought she would never do. And now she was considering both. How had things spiraled so far so fast? Misunderstanding her pause for hesitation, Preeminent pressed further. You have something different planned? If so, feel free to share. She scowled at him. You have to agree to a few things first. First, after I help with this, whatever the result, you'll give me a ship and let me leave. No argument. Preeminent nodded. Accepted. What else? That you answer my questions. You want me to help you? I expect that in return. Frau Furring, he said, within reason. Anything to do with the assassination and doesn't deal with anything sensitive otherwise. Can't ask for them to tell me much more, Vampire conceded to herself. Third, I can refuse whatever you tell me to do. As you said, I'm not joining you. Dad made his lip curl, but he acquiesced. Not like we can force you otherwise. Agreed. And lastly, when you get souls, I get souls. That was the one Vampire wasn't sure he would accept. She didn't know how many souls farms the Ascenters had operating, and having to share them with her might be more than he can afford, if willing. He needed the souls to stay alive as much as her. But Preeminent just shrugged. I presumed as much. So we're in agreement then? Vampire nodded. I'll help with the assassination. Smiling and letting out a sigh of relief, Preeminent teleported somewhere for a few seconds before coming back, her coat in sight in his hands. Then to the start of our new partnership, he said, handing them to her. Accepting them, she pressed her lips together at what was left of her coat. A gray and black rag with drops of metal stuck to it, she let it slip from her hands to drop to the floor. A thud made her pick it back up and saw that her gloves and plasma pack were still inside the pocket, her dagger in the hidden pocket which she had pocketed behind her. I asked that everything be left there as is, Preeminent told her. Vampire scoffed. You mean the pack is still full? Yes, so kindly don't try to call my bluff. Regarding him, she held onto it, not sure whether to believe he'd give her something that could kill them both. So, do you need to prepare accommodations, or have you already prepared something? I had accommodations prepared. Care to go? Waving for him to lead, he left the medical bay with her right behind. Lowering the ramp, they stepped down to what she'd expected. Dozens of anarchists waiting with plasma arms, with ships in positions above them waiting to fire. A small army had been prepared for her, with all of them a good distance away. Vampire suspected the freighter's plasma storages weren't emptied either, meaning one placed shot on the unshielded ship would burn anyone in the area to a crisp. You certainly did have accommodations prepared, Vampire commented. Can you blame me for being cautious? I merely was stating an observation. There was no blame implied. As they continue onward, you can feel everyone's glares focus on her and the animosity behind them. Preeminent seemed to feel it too, keeping close to her and watching his own with a careful eye. I wanted them to have us sleeve together peacefully, but I would suggest not leaving your accommodations unless I come get you, Preeminent whispered. Most of us are not as accepting of the idea of you joining or helping. I hadn't presumed so. Surrounded by those who saw her as an enemy. Something told her Preeminent gave her back her sight for more than just a sign of trust. The door to her new quarters closed behind her. It was about the same size as what she had in her freighter. Leaning her sight against the wall, she donned her gloves and locked the entrance. There were no guards outside. Preeminent admitted not knowing if he can trust anyone to guard her and not be tempted into preemptive action. They would know when she left, but nobody would be there to stop her. Sighing, Vampire sat on the edge of her bunk, closing her eyes. Preeminent said he would speak to her tomorrow, so she had the rest of the day to herself. Taking off her mask, she felt the tears she'd been holding in stream down her face. Oh, Cassidy, what have I gotten myself into? What must you be thinking? Oh, Cass, how do I tell you? Our daughter is dead. I don't even know if I'll ever be able to tell you. Damn the sources, our daughter is dead. Marissa is dead. We gave her up to death. Grandpa let out a sob, covering her mouth with her hand to try and stifle it. She kept clenching and unclenching her teeth as if between wanting to wail or cry and unable to do either. She kept shaking her head and holding herself tightly. Oh, Cass. End of chapter. Thoughts, critiques, concerns.
Holy shit, I am gonna have a really tough one trying to follow up that act. Although, to be fair, I also noticed your voice cracked a few times, but, that's just an aesthetic thing. So,
Yeah, I'm
outside
not
of
in
that,
reading's a bit difficult today. Apologies.
yeah, oh god. That was great. I love that. Like, small little details like the fact that Vampro refers to them as the anarchists, because of course the Ascending Territories would choose a more propagandistic way of referring to the dissenters. This also felt really proper that these two, who are basically on par with each other, would be the ones discussing this sort of thing, and not just any ordinary grunts. Let's see. I guess maybe there's some word choices here and there that I didn't quite like, but I'm gonna be reading through this. So I'll be able to highlight it in your Google Doc anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah. Outside of that, that was pretty good. I don't know how I'm gonna follow that up.
Thoughts anywhere else?
It was very interesting. I haven't been following this from the beginning, so I'm very lost.
I know most everyone else pretty much it.
Yeah,
Even
Wizia is
Diamond
like gushing, and I'm like, I have no idea what went on in there. It was kind of neat listening to the negotiation, but like, I don't really know the atmosphere. I don't know the.
Yeah, it's. I'll try to quickly catch you up on it. So basically, there's this rebel group called the Dissenters who are trying to rebelling against the Ascending Territories. The Ascending Territories are ruled by a collection of basically psychic godlike entities called the Sources. The Sources are doing evil genocide-y stuff, and the Dissenters want to stop that. However, there are things called hosts, which are extremely powerful psychic beings capable of manipulating different aspects of reality, such as space, mind, soul, and so on. So these sources are the superpowered version of that, and some of these hosts were selected by the sources to become what are called angels. They are their special elite who are sent in to do their dirty work, and that is essentially most of the world building that you will need to understand most of this. However, one of them did in fact rebel against them, and that was Preeminent. Preeminent being the guy who was just talking with Vampira, who was recently betrayed by them. At least I assumed that she was recently betrayed, given the title of the work, and we have... And yeah, that's about it.
Hmm.
Few things here and there a bit off, but yeah, general thing.
I mean, yeah.
It makes more sense. Ballpark for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're currently also on a spaceship because in the previous chapter, Vampira ended up aboard a spaceship where our protagonist from the first third of the story was present.
Well, first third of first third.
Oh, the first third of the first part.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I'm glad to see it finally got to the vampire meeting scene. Glad it did
Yeah.
deliver. Valerian Cassidy is Vampira's wife.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Dunn's been technically here for every chapter I've read. I'm pretty sure he also barely remembers half the shit I've read.
Really
Aw,
depends.
come on.
So that's probably because he listens to a lot of these stories, and I guess it'd be hard to pick out one from the other when he's listened to so many.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I've basically only been reading my stuff and your stuff, Aspiring, so yeah, there's that.
Fair. To Fantic's comment on acquiesced, it means a bit reluctantly, so he's like, yeah, we can't really force you to do shit.
I know what it means. It's just you said acquiesced, and I was confused.
I am currently unwell, if you're wondering why I might be sounding even more off than normal when reading.
No worries.
Yeah, I was
Can-
overlooking politely all of your like weird mispronunciations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say I don't
Um,
mispronounce things anyways, but today in particular I kept stuttering a bit.
Yeah.
That's all right.
That's true. Axula's one of those who does actually manage to pay attention and remember a lot of the stories.
It
Yep.
really
I would-
depends, Valerian. It really depends.
Plus, done mind lacking. Yeah,
Well,
sometimes.
thankfully for me, I don't really have that much of an issue, considering I wrote out a recap prior to coming onto today's stream.
You
So,
fine
hopefully-
But yeah. So that's all in terms of comments, critiques, concerns.
This felt like a momentous occasion, and I feel like you pay that off really well.
Really?
Like this-
Dialogue was fine?
Yeah, the dialogue was pretty good. I really liked that. It's because like I had a scene in my story where we had a momentous occasion like this, where the leaders or the figureheads of two sides were finally meeting, and yeah, it felt right having moments like this in a story. So, yeah, I got no more commentary on it.
Right?
Time for you to go.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and read out a brief recap before we get into today's chapter. Rosa awoke within the bowels of an underground facility with no recollection of her past life. She is discovered by an expedition party led by Captain Malik Abdullah. She agrees to go with them on the condition that they can send her back home, and he accepts. Lucia rediscovers Lucia discovers the resettlement program and that Malik was meant to be on Earth in the first place. He is scolded upon his return to Polis and instructed by the Chancellor to meet with him the next day to discuss the fate of Lucia, which leads us into Chapter 8, The Trial of the Marshals. The golden doors slid open, creaking. The beams of bright white light pounded on Malik as he walked into the room. The chamber's windows were tall and transparent, letting daylight beam through. At the far end of the room was an arch-shaped desk with 11 chairs behind it, 10 of which were occupied. The Chancellor Harun Rashid sat on the one in the center, one more decorated, almost like a throne. To either side of him were 5 seats, with each of the men gathered dressed in their full uniform. Each wore different colors from the other, although none wore purple nor yellow. Malik's eyes scanned across the room, counting them in his head. All 9 Grand Marshals gathered here. The air became heavy as the doors slammed shut behind him, the white lights above roasting him like meat in an oven. Finally, Haroon opened, his tone as calm and frigid as ever. Greetings, Malik. Chancellor, he said, bowing his head, his eyes trailing to a pale man in olive green. Marshal. Haroon's joints whirled as he tapped on his desk. Before we begin, there are some formalities we would like to get out of the way. Malik swallowed, sweat forming across his brows. Haroon looked to his right. I believe you have something you wanted to say. A man of olive complexion and in a red uniform nodded. Dimitri's commander, the Crimson Praetorian, Grand Marshal of the Planetary Security Corps, Vincent Augusto, stood up. Captain Malik Abdullah, your recent actions constitute desertion and insubordination. Malik shuddered, his hands tightening. Not only does your incursion into the autonomous territories represent an egregious security violation, but it also betrays a disregard for protocol that cannot, nor should it be overstated nor overlooked. Malik blinked, his sweat mixing into his eyes. He focused on Vincent, seeing a smirk grow across his face. Such actions warrant an immediate and dishonorable discharge, as well as stripping of rank, title, and privileges. Malik gulped, his throat jittering and his ribs riveting. Get on with it. Say it. His eyes trailed off to Haroon, seeing his visor glow slightly brighter. However, after much special pleading, and with the overwhelming success of the incursion, the Joint Chiefs of Staff have elected not to press any charges. Malik deflated, letting out a deep sigh as he smiled, something that did not go unnoticed by Vincent. He glared at him, his pupils shrinking. Instead, we'll leave you off with a warning, he said, shutting off the tablet on his desk and leaning in. The next time you pull something like this, you will be branded an enemy of the state with a bounty on your head so high that you will never be able to fly near a civilized system again. Am I understood? Malik's face turned pale, every fiber in his body tensing as he gazed into Vincent's death glare. Sir, yes, sir. The Grand Marshal sat down, Haroon turning his attention to Malik when he did so. Now, with that out of the way, shall we proceed with the first item on today's agenda? The Chancellor, the Chancellor looked at an ebony man in pure white, who nodded along. Then, Grand Marshal Mansa, the Gilded Conqueror, and Commander of the Light Riders Corps addressed Malik. Captain Malik Abdullah, last night you sent in a request on behalf of Lucia to have her assigned to the Resettlement Initiative. The captain nodded as Mansa glanced down at his tablet. Furthermore, you have also issued a request to oversee her combat training. A scoff ruptured in the chamber, distracting him. Yet, Mansa continued. However, after looking through her lab work, and in light of recent events, he said, glancing up at Malik, we, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have elected to decline your request. Malik shook his head, his eyes scanning the expressions of each of the officers. Excuse me? You're dismissed. A chill ran down Malik's spine. He turned around, seeing a pale man in olive green sitting with his arms crossed. His Marshal, the Liberator, Audie S. Miller, spoke up. If you know what's best for you, you'd leave it at that. Malik's gaze met Miller's glare. His breath slowed as he answered back. Sir, I humbly request to know what the Joint Chiefs plan to do with Lucia. Declined, Vincent snapped. In case you forgot, you're on a need-to-know basis, and right now you don't. Malik turned his attention to the Crimson Praetorian, seeing his expressions turn stern. That, and you're already in hot enough water as it is, boy. Malik clenched his hands and stood his ground. I understand, sir, but I risked incurring your wrath just to bring her here. Lucia only agreed to come because I assured her she can turn back home at any time. I think I have a right to know what you plan to do with her. Vincent groaned, rubbing his eyes. He gave a sideways glance to Haroon and his fellow marshals, seeing some of them shrug, others nod, and only one more shaking her head. He pushed off the table, sitting upright. The Joint Chiefs of Staff believe her talents would be squandered as a mere foot soldier. Therefore, they would like to put her under the tutelage of Naomi and groom her for the role of Grand Marshal. Malik's pulse spiked. His pupils shrunk. I object, he roared, drawing the ire of everyone in the room. Excuse me, Vincent snapped. Who are you to object, her goddamned lawyer? He swallowed, knowing what he's done, but rushed in. Irrelevant. She didn't agree to this. You can't do this to her. This one doesn't know how to command an army, let alone an entire corps. Haroon glanced at the empty seat, then addressed Malik. Indeed. To fill the tiger's shoes will require experience in metal that she has not yet acquired. That is why we plan to enroll her as an officer and let her climb the ladder as per usual. Malik glared at him and snapped. I can agree to training her as an officer. She's already started that process. But Naomi? Her? She lacks discipline, experience. She is horrifically underqualified to train an officer, let alone a marshal. Really, now, the Liberator scoffed. Now, what makes you so special, Malik? Why not pick out any other officer, even that worthless trash Jareen? Malik's face wrinkled as he barked back. Because Lucia trusts me, and you think that is enough. Malik shuddered, hearing a voice powerful as thunder, yet cold as ice. He turned around, his eyes meeting that of a man of light complexion, dressed in a mix of gray and maroon. The man of iron, hero of the USR, eldest of the Marshals. Umar had addressed him. If what Naomi says is true, that woman can overpower anyone in this room, maybe all of us at once. She can take direct hit from capital ship-grade weapon and dish out equivalent punishment. Malik's eyes widened, and his face paled. If this is a matter of picking best man for job, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, Captain. Malik's face reddened. Naomi's formulations are horrifically exaggerated. I've seen her when she's lost control. She's not the deadly super weapon you think she is. Besides, she has control of her powers. We know how they work. Hell, we spent the entire trip on the cruiser helping her control them, he said, locking eyes with his superior. Really? Umar asked, tapping the desk. Then you can provide demonstration. Malik's face paled, his lungs hollowing. A man of similar complexion to his own, dressed in navy blue, chimed in. Malik, Ali, the crescent saber and most decorated of them all, chimed in. Combat training is as mentally demanding as it is physically. The risk cannot be understated. If she so much as conjures a spark or a flame involuntarily, then we will need to send her to Naomi. Then we have our terms, Haroon sounded off. Malik, still shivering, scanned the room, seeing none of the marshals protest. I'll take that as a yes, he wrapped up. Malik, however, swallowed and stepped forward. Chancellor, if I may, I think it would be best if I conducted the test myself. Miller, reclined back in his seat, glared at Malik, then snapped at him. And let you rake the thing? Not a snowball's chance in hell. Haroon's head pivoted to Miller. Are you volunteering? The marshal cocked an eyebrow, then scowled. Yeah, I'll run the test. Miller answered, sneering at Malik. I'll put your little firebird through a whirlwind of pain. Malik's face paled, even as he tried to glare back. Then he jolted, facing the Chancellor. Do we have any objections? He waited, giving the marshals the chance to speak up. None of them raised their voices, so Haroon carried on. Well, it seems we're all in agreement. Miller will test Lucia's discipline. If she can show restraint in using her powers, you will be allowed to train her. Otherwise, we'll move forward with our own designs. Malik, nodding, accepted the terms with an abrasive tone. Understood, Chancellor. The two stared each other down for a moment before Malik exited the chamber, the doors sliding shut behind him. The gray doors slid open. Lucia entered the well-lit rectangular and white training hall, dressed in a black sports bra and shorts. She looked to the center and shuddered, her pupils widening. Standing there was a giant of a man dressed in a form-fitting full bodysuit, one colored in olive green. His hair was dark, his eyes jade, and the rest and his body that of a muscled brute. Finally, Lucia breathed. Fuck, don't tell me I have to fight him. She stared at the bioengineered superhuman, waiting for a response that came quickly. At attention, cadet! His voice boomed like a drill sergeant, causing her to shudder. I am Grand Marshal Audie S. Miller, but you will address me as Marshal or Sir. Understood? Lucia straightened out and saluted the Liberator, and shouted back. Sir, yes, sir! The Grand Marshal grimaced and cringed. Dialed it down, maggot! You trying to compensate for something? Lucia blinked, her cheeks flushing red as her arms fell to her sides and her knees bent. Sorry, sir. Won't happen again. Miller groaned. It better not, he muttered before crossing his arms. Malik is of the opinion that you're a disciplined young lady with control over her powers. Lucia heard the door slid open behind her, followed quickly by the clanking of armored boots. She glanced around, spotting several armed vanguards in olive green armor, each with equipped with pauldrons and a cape flown over the back of their legs. The marshal motioned his hand to his right, and Lucia attracted to a group of men and women in white with a stretcher and medical equipment. As you can see, the other marshals and I disagree. Lucia gulped, sweat forming across her brows and her heart pounding in her chest. Her eyes darted between the marshal's personal guard, looking at the faceless helmets of the veterans. You won't be fighting them, of course, he explained, grinning cheek to cheek. No, today you'll be sparring me. Lucia's eyes shot open, her heart skipping a beat. Take me on without using your powers, and regardless of the outcome, we'll let you train with Malik. Understood? Lucia's muscles locked as her bones rattled, sweat streaming down her form. Sir, yes, sir! She shouted again, her eyes tearing up. I can't use them, she muttered to herself, seeing Linen's convulsing, wounded form. I won't. All right, then, Miller shouted with a smile, a leg sliding back as he raised his fists. If that's everything, let's dance. Lucia shuddered, straightening her back, keeping her shoulders facing her opponent, one leg back and straight and slightly out with both knees bent. She spotted a brief smirk on the Liberator's face. Lucia raised her arms, protecting her upper body while keeping her fists ready. Oh, wait a second. While keeping her fists ready, sorry. She squinted, seeing Miller shake his head. Then her pupils shrunk, a gust of wind blasting against her. She ducked beneath the first blow, rolling away from the bioengineered soldier. He followed up, blood rushing through her head as his fist just barely missed her head. Too fast, she groaned, taking a knee to her side, throwing her off as he landed a jab to her face, then a hook to her cheek. Lucia stumbled, nearly falling to the ground as she recomposed herself. Come on, that all you got? Miller cracked his knuckles. I know you can do better than that, Phoenix. Lucia's brows drew together. You little shit, she snarled, feeling her hands heat up. She blinked, her eyes starting to her palms, seeing a faint glow forming. Her eyes shot open as she shook her hand. No, I can't use them. She exhaled. The wind knocked out. The wind knocked out of her as the blunt force of his fist slammed into under her ribs. Lucia wheezed just as another hit slammed into her side, then to her cheek. She fumbled, her head in a daze as an arm wrapped around her thigh and lifted it up. Lucia's eyes shot open as an elbow crashed into her face, rupturing a vein in her nose. She fell to the air blast against her face as she was thrown onto the floor. Lucia rolled, landing flat on her back and squinting as her eyes met the white lights above. A sharp ringing ruptured in her ears as she groaned and glanced back at her opponent. Pathetic! Miller shouted, approaching her. You think we just taken anyone? Lucia gritted her teeth, the blunt trauma healing instantly. She rolled onto her side, hearing and feeling the pulsing in her head. Don't listen to him. He's just trying to piss you off, Lucia reminded herself, tears slipping from her eyes and her heart lighting up. Fuck no, she heard him shout, his heavy footsteps becoming louder. A puny little slut like you won't last 5 seconds on the battlefield. She clenched her fists, her hands beginning to glow. Lucia's eyes shot open. No. You're not even a soldier. You're just some bitch Malik dug up from some shitty rock. Lucia blinked, briefly glancing up at him before rolling away, just as he tried to kicking her. She got back on her feet, the glow fading away. Her brows came together and her gaze narrowed. You just tried kicking me while I was down. She felt the heat in her hands. Lucia clenched them and exhaled. Focus, Wes, focus. Her pupils shrunk and she sidestepped the blow. There, she swung into his rib, landing her first blow of the fight. She saw him contort, his teeth gritted together as her fist sank into his flesh, with a small amount of smoke rising from where the blow connected. She gave him no time to prepare for the uppercut. She slipped between his arms and landed straight into his jaw. The marshal stumbled, taking a step back. Lucia's pupils dilated as a grin stretched across her face. He was open. Lucia threw blow after blow, striking his open chest and abdomen, focusing on his gut. Then she tried it. She swung her leg around, trying to land a blow to his head. But Lucia's timing was off, and the joy drained from her face. She saw it in slow motion, the grin forming across his face as he grabbed her leg and threw it away. Her balance was lost as she recovered and faced her opponent. She didn't have time. He threw a punch to her cheek, her abdomen, and her chest. The world quickly blurred, sweat blasting off her while her body became bruised and numbed with every blow. Finally, she dropped to the ground, gritting her teeth together and in too much pain to think or move. You're done. She shook her head, perplexed and stunned. What happened? The words entered her mind as the adrenaline began to exit her system. She was exhausted and sore, her body refusing to get off the floor. I lost? Lucia realized as her eyes began to leak. He was so fast, and he hit so hard. How was I supposed to beat him? I didn't stand a chance. Congratulations, she staggered, hearing Miller cough. Passed the test. Then, groaning and grimacing, Lucia lifted herself, seeing small puddles of blood from where she landed. As she looked at him, something burned in her vision slowly sharpening. What do you mean pass? Her eyes widened. The Marshal's body was bruised and bleeding where she hit him, and her heart skipped a beat. Holy shit! Are you alright? The Marshal raised an eyebrow, his jaw slouched. Yeah, don't worry about me, he scoffed. Miller was breathing like a tired horse with a hand over his abdomen, yet he appeared unfazed. Did you forget the whole point of this exercise? Lucia's face paled, the color draining. I still lost. Hell, color me impressed. That exchange at the end there had me worried for a second. Lucia saw a radiant smile on his face as he extended his hand. She took it, getting back up. The numbness had faded, as did the sharp pain, with the many cuts sealing off. Lucia glanced down at herself and sighed. Thank God I have that region. She jolted, feeling a tap to her arm. Officer's training starts tomorrow, Miller explained. You'll get your rest. You've earned it. Lucia nodded and took her leave, still feeling the hollowness in her chest. Ooh. Okay, that's done. That is chapter. Chapter done.
Good stuff.
Holy moly, that was nice.
Oh, thank you.
Very clear action. Very clear setup and payoff. Very clear stakes. Very good character writing.
Yeah.
Thanks. Although I was thinking of having some of the more aggressive comments at that meeting be moved exclusively to Augusto Vincent because... Oh wait, it was Vincent Augusto. Fuck. Anyway, I was thinking of moving those comments to him because this is the guy who really hates Malik's guts in this scene. As you can tell by the fact that, here's the guy who warned him that we will literally put a bounty on your goddamn head. Any critiques? Criticisms? Praises?
That works.
Death threats, even?
You did provide one for me earlier.
No.
I guess my only one is kind of a pet peeve of mine, which is I hate dialogue tags like explained. I find them very redundant.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to go back over that again because I know that there was some clunkiness with the prose here and there, but overall it was. I'm not going to praise my own work. I'll leave you guys to decide on whether or not it was good.
I won't praise my work. I'll let you guys do that for me.
I mean, I wasn't expecting any praise, so there you go.
Oh, it was good. It was very good.
Yeah. Let's see. Axel has a comment over there. Yeah. Initial drafts of this chapter actually didn't have the stakes that was there previously. Originally, it was just Lucia being contested for her combat prowess against the Marshal. So she did end up using her powers, but she was eventually restrained. But I decided, nah, I need to make her depowered. I need to encourage her to be depowered, so that way she can become empowered later on. So
the problem is when you make a character with an OP power.
Yeah, she gets angry and she creates fire, at least as far as she's concerned. And her constantly trying to restrain that leaves her open to getting a gigantic half-a-meter wide fist slammed into her face.
And you plan to make her more powerful than Goku, if I remember correctly.
At some point, possibly. But honestly, actually looking into the Dragon Ball Z universe, that's actually not very hard to do. The only question is, okay, what about Ultra Instinct?
You're actually trying to make her fucking Goku. Jesus Christ.
Never seen
Balerion
Dragon
said.
Ball. Never seen Dragon Ball, but I know the memes.
Same here. When anyone
Balerion says. I was just going to say, Balerion says, dialogue superior to description.
Holy shit, you can understand that?
It's quite
Yeah,
easy
maybe.
once you understand the letter substitutions. It's quite easy.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, for instance,
The square bracket, the open square bracket is an R. The sevens are T's, and you're pretty much halfway there already.
Is this problem like consistent on which?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
on things
Yeah,
like-
yeah.
That's
Okay.
fairly consistent.
Anyway,
Like, highlight-
Don, you were saying something?
Oh, was done saying.
No.
So
Sorry,
yeah,
I interrupted someone there. Yeah.
yeah. So that fight sequence is actually a pretty old part of the story now. I haven't really revisited it for a while, so I mean, I guess I did revisit it every now and then, but it's just been kind of stagnant, if you know what I mean. As in any new ways of writing or any ways of flow improvement that I've discovered later on down the road has not been applied to this chapter. So is that everything?
Yeah, probably.
Damn.
The
What
constant-
about Fanatic over there? Did he have anything he wanted to say?
I think everyone. Yeah, I think my comments were covered. I'm also just reading what Blairion's typing. Anyway,
He's the only one who can truly interpret fluently Valerion's fucking crazy speech.
shift is fine. No, I'm shifting. Okay. Yeah, no, the fight scene was very well done. It was very easy to follow. Got a good idea of the characters themselves and kind of who they are,
Yeah.
and kind of the situation as well. So it was very well presented.
No, thank you. I mean, I added in those taunts kind of, later on down the road because, hold on, wait a second. Miller is trying to piss her off and get her to use her powers. So why the hell is he, just fighting her as per normal? Wouldn't he want to try to stoke her up a bit? And as you can easily see, it almost worked. So.
Oh, sorry. Again, I'm just going back to Balerion's thing of like he's deliberately using those letters because that's how he's trying to communicate.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Aspiring, did you share your piece yet on what you thought?
I did a little bit. Like the dialogue, like the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the beginning was new stuff, mostly, so. Like, Vincent threatening Malik was new, so. Alright, I guess that's everything. Thank you very much for your feedback, guys.
Yeah, our pleasure. We're happy to give you as much feedback as we can.
Indeed.
Alright, awesome.
Malik, cool.
Oh, wait, that reminds me. Does any of this seem realistic at all? Like, does it seem plausible? Like,
In terms
Malik,
of
like Malik not immediately getting booted out of the room for fighting back, essentially, on Rosa's behalf?
It seemed fine to me, at
Hmm.
least.
Okay, and the whole setup for the fight sequence, does that seem like, not stupid? Because my concern was that Umar points out that this gal is extremely powerful and dangerous. Malik downplays it. It says that she has control of her powers. and they decide to test whether or not she does by having one of them fight her. Even though he had like his personal bodyguard and a medical staff on hand.
Okay. Yeah, it appears as though Mr. Valerian likes Malik, so that's something.
Great! Awesome. Alright. Well, that's it. That's it for me.
Yes, and it looks like who was also supposed to come who did not arrive? There's Fantic, Vero canceled, and we did not hear from Recurring Extra, aka.
Yeah, Johan did not show up now.
Might just be really bad hours for him.
Probably either that or he's just working. They're working on something maybe. But
You know, something neat that I did like is that when I started the fight sequence, you notice there was a pause. That's because I decided to play a song while reading that part out, and it conveniently ended right when the fight ended. So yeah, there you go.
Do you guys actually like listen to music while reading? Is that a thing you do?
No, I just decided to do that because it felt proper. It felt proper playing the boss's theme song while I'm reading the boss fighting our pro tag.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me read something with music. Otherwise, I legit key the music to what I read. I read the Reckoner series with one particular song stuck in my head so much, and anytime it plays, I'm like, oh, Reckoners. I now just remember the entire series.
For whatever reason, there was a time where I heard the Scotty doesn't know, and it just played in my head incessantly for weeks.
Weeks? Damn. How catchy is that song?
Scotty doesn't know the Fiona and me. Yeah, could just be me.
No, don't virus it into my head, please.
Of course not.
The best cure to a catchy song is play that song until it stops being catchy.
No.
Or at the very least stops getting drilled into your head.
Did anybody ever watch Aqua Teen Hunger Force? It's probably before your times.
I did,
no.
I think. The one with the milkshake, the meatball.
Yeah. I was just reminded of there was like Meatwad had a doll that kept playing a song, and then the neighbor Carl, he's like, it just keeps going in my head, and it's not gonna stop. It's never gonna stop. They'll blow it out. The bullet, and that's the best stop for. That's how you stop a song stuck in your head. So don't do it. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, completely forgot to ask. What are people's opinions on Lucia? Or Rosa, rather.
The characters in your story?
Yeah.
She seems confident, which is very, very, very refreshing.
Should what?
She's competent, which is very refreshing.
No. Okay.
And she has self-restraint. She doesn't just wreck her opponent because she is a Captain Marvel ripoff.
Yeah. Also, the important bit that I wanted to highlight was her showing concern or seeing her opponent battered and bruised like that. Because that is essentially the core of her as a person. As I hope it's been made very apparent by now.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I do like I had trouble like following and that's more of a me thing, I think. Like my focus is just not where it should be. But it was like, so I didn't really have a clear idea. Like you gave a recap, but I was like, it still didn't tell me what the world was like. But there's like the USSR. You did a decent Russian accent, not bad. I know, like when I did my thing, like my accents were terrible. I just couldn't do it.
It's on the USSR. It's the USR.
Oh.
It was supposed to be spoofing the USA.
Oh shoot! I was hearing Russian accents.
So was I, and I don't. This is not criticism, but I do wonder how the fuck accents work when you have a galaxy traveling society. It's like,
well, it's simple. People stay within their own little bubbles, and that's how accents form. People speak specific languages.
Delta louder.
Well, it depends on how much people travel.
It depends on their social status, I guess.
Walla. Not landlord.
There
would be a traveling accent.
There probably would be a traveler's accent in my setting, yeah. It probably would form depending on which systems you visit. But yeah, I guess there would be a traveler's accent, but there's also going to be like planetary accents, regional, continental. It's going to be a hodgepodge.
Well, I do wonder, would there be a planetary accent? It's not like we have a planetary accent.
You know what? Good point.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I wonder how that would work in a society like that.
I think accents are generally formed based upon the language. Like, if everybody spoke the same language, and then they spoke a different language, well, then they'd have an accent in language B.
Well, dialect is a thing which can change accents.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
You know,
a Texan sounds very different from a Californian.
Unfortunately.
I'm not gonna question what you mean by that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm just figuring out what I want to read.
Oh. That's what was going on this whole time? I thought we were just like talking and you were waiting for an opportunity to begin reading and we were just being assholes and constantly cutting you off.
No.
No, you're fine. I'm just looking through my rather large back catalog. Some of it finished, some of it unfinished.
Doesn't Addo still need to read?
Is it who?
Aspiring?
He already read.
Oh shoot, what happened? I was listening, I was here for it. No, I remember now. Vampira and like the comment. Okay, yeah, no, that's right.
Vampira. I need to note that one for future use.
Vampira can be Vampira's sister, I guess. Is that the name of the character or the actual name? What's the actual name?
No. Have somebody
Vampira?
accidentally.
Yeah,
have somebody accidentally.
She could be a triplet. It would be Vampira, Vampira, and Vampira.
Have somebody accidentally call her one of those names in the setting, and have her kill him. Or something.
No.
It would be.
No.
Sucker.
There is, I'm sure, a way I can make a similar joke with a different character. That will not happen with Vampira. That is like mispronouncing Hitler's name to Hitler's face.
I don't think Hitler was like personally very aggressive like that. It was more like the whole Reich thing. It was a machine.
Oh God, it's good.
Well, I'm getting it's like everyone knows who Hitler is, and everyone knows how his name is pronounced.
That's true. And it's just like, it's like looking at videos of the guy Just die. Like I saw this one of him like at the Olympics where he was like, I don't know, he was like methed out and he was doing this rocking and shaking thing, and it's like, he's not,
He was not a very stable person. The guy believed that he was saving the world from capitalist Jews.
Well, not capitalist Jews, Marxist Jews. Big difference.
It was both. It was
both.
both.
I guess from capitalism and its decline. Like he thought Marx was right about his like.
Allow me to briefly explain.
Please not go down this rabbit hole.
I was about to say, maybe let's not
get
get political about the capitalism.
Yeah,
We would like to make money.
Yeah, I was going to quip that he believed that capitalism was like a Jewish conspiracy theory to destabilize the world, and that Marxism was also a Jewish conspiracy, so that way they could slip in amongst the German people and breed with them or whatever, and thus destroy the world because the Jews? Question mark?
You're kind of off on some of it, by my understanding. I haven't delved in very deeply because I think Marxism is the root of all evil. That's all there is to it, and Hitler was the tool they used. The Jewish thing, like that's coincidental. It just happened to be a lot of the Marxists were atheist Jews. Like it's weird. Like if a Jew becomes an atheist, they tend to go Marxist. It's like I don't know why that happens, but it's weird.
Anyway, Goodwin, go piss off now. We're not going to abide by your law
anymore. We're gonna get Kanye in here if you don't hurry up.
Okay.
What the fuck is happening?
Goodwin's law. Every single conversation on the internet can and will eventually lead to a discussion of World War II and Hitler.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about the war.
I was just making a comparison. That's not even. I should have.
Yes.
Well, yeah, this is all your fault, Aspiring.
I should have just said Genghis Khan. I should have just said Genghis Khan.
Yeah, that actually be more reasonable. Like Genghis Khan was like an actual frontline warrior.
Or Joseph Mengele.
This is very suspicious.
Would have needed to like guards to beat down first. But yeah, that's a good point.
The comparison was just someone whose name is very well known across the world.
Yeah, like if you call Mengele Mangle, like with like mangle, like as in mangling people to his face, like then you might get mangled.
My first thought went to George Washington. Like nobody is going to have any issues pronouncing George Washington's name. At least in America, because we all know how to pronounce George Washington's name, because we all know who he is.
Well, yeah, that's why I picked Hitler as the example. It's something not just America, just the entire world would know how to pronounce Hitler's name.
I mean, some places in the world haven't even heard of the guy, so...
Oh, I see what you mean, because Vampira is like perfectly well known by the whole universe, because... I don't know
Yep.
who she is.
She is like the 8th most well-known figure.
All right.
Like I said, she was the leader of a elite selection of soldiers who work directly for the sources, or these godlike beings. So, yeah, I can see her being well known.
One of the angels' name is used in a curse.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like no one's mispronouncing it unless it's intentional, and no one fucking would. Well, unless they have some major fucking balls, which one of my characters does. One of my characters honestly would fucking do that.
Do it. It would be hilarious.
Maybe. I still don't know how I'm making their interaction if they're gonna actually interact. It depends how it works. Just some logistics. They might try and kill each other if they meet.
Yikes.
Yeah,
I hope you're not talking about Triple.
No, Q.
I've not even been introduced to them, so there we go.
Q was the one with the balls to do that if he met Vampira. Again.
Kanye is awesome.
He is a very interesting person, I will say that.
Well, I mean, he kind of proved
Yeah.
his point with his post. Like he didn't even have to wake up in the morning, and he proved his point. So that's all.
You're talking about the WLM post.
I don't want this getting pulled. So
Next time say Khan, yes. Okay, fine, Count. I will no longer say
Khan,
Hitler,
yes.
just Khan. Also, no Kanye talk.
Yeah.
I veto the mention of the KNYE.
what's wrong? He's awesome. Like, you know, he speaks from his heart, follows God, and you know, I mean, God clearly loved him because like his clothing line is like whatever. Why?
Why do you say loved him as if he's dead?
No, I
Kanye
said
isn't
loves.
dead.
I said loves. God clearly loves him because
Trip,
like his clothing,
yes, you already
like
said
how he's freaking crazy loaded. Like his music's pretty decent, but like, you know, Bob Dylan's way better, and Bob Dylan has nowhere near his cash. It was like because Kanye somehow. Oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to say the name. He has just like God loves him. That's the only explanation I can think of.
So
You're-
Yes is now he who shall
Kanyes.
not be named.
Also, it doesn't
Yay.
matter even more say the name. Unfortunately, the person who you shouldn't have let hear you say the name and what you said about him is now aware.
What is the? I don't understand Tripp's problem. Like, what did he do something?
I know that one thing that he did was basically embarrass Taylor Swift live.
Oh, I mean, Beyonce deserved to win. No, I mean, Kanye, you know, the guy is irrepressible.
He clearly is, yeah.
But no, he did embarrass
Hello.
Taylor Swift.
Better or
but, like,
worse.
I love how Valerian just says who.
Yeah.
He's a musician. Oh
A
yes.
rapper, I believe.
Yeah, he's a rapper.
I don't know
More like
about manhood.
Para-Rappa, the rapper.
I mean, the guy's clearly like he's a wild dude, but like I think his heart's in the right place.
Oh god, we got ourselves a
he's
porn
hilarious.
bot in the chat.
There we go.
There's a porn bot.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
Great
all right,
timing
all right.
too. We talked about Kanye and Pornbot appears.
Oh, it finally happened.
Oh, this
It's
has
happened many times.
Yeah.
Huh. That's weird. Why is my chat's not caught up?
I
No porno.
know what he's saying, but he just it just says poino.
Either way, it's funny. Kill Poino or kill porno.
For all tastes and ages, 59.
Yeah, it's gone in the YouTube chat. So this is an old one, and I really want some feedback on how to improve it. Since I actually wrote this while I was on my mission, and the main character is actually named after my MTC companion, Enyon, Draker Anderson. He is a really cool guy, and I very much admired him. He also has a pretty badass name.
Okay.
No idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty. So this is just the first chapter of Walking with Dragons. Draker munched on the remaining popcorn in his large bucket absentmindedly as he watched the dragon on the movie screen destroy a town in a large burst of fire in the final climax of the film. The giant creature seemed to be unstoppable in its assault. Draker kept his eyes fixed on the screen as he picked up the soda and slurped up the dregs. This was the big finish, the best part of the film. Where the dragon got to be unleashed at long last. This was the part that Draker always looked forward to. Needless to say. For a moment, he imagined himself in the film. People below watching the dragon, but as if he were the dragon. Fire building inside his chest and then bellowing outward. He spun in the air, then opened his mouth and unleashed a torrent of fire on his victims. The village burned, and people threw themselves into the water, uttered, trying to escape the ravenous flames. The dragon roared and flew around toward the town and slammed its scaly bolt through several of the buildings, sending up screams of terror from the streets and shrieks of pain from the destroyed buildings. Then suddenly, the world fuzzed around him. Draco was sitting in a massive forest, thick with enormous trees. He stared around in amazement, then yelled in terror as he saw a large herd of strange-looking deer creatures thundering toward him. Then, just as he was about to run, he heard the swoop, then a roar of a massive winged creature spitting fire. Draco snapped back to reality with a surprised yell, hands wide-knuckled on the arms of his seat. Several people looked around at him and loudly shushed him, but Draco was too much in shock to do anything more than swallow and get back into the film. It wasn't as engrossing as it had been. Draco kept thinking about that hallucination he just had. It felt so real, as if you were actually there. You could feel the heat of the fire, hear the stampeding deer things, and see everything around him with perfect clarity. Also, before the credits began to roll, Draco rushed out of the theater, feeling slightly ill. He didn't notice the posters for upcoming films on the walls. Instead, he quickly passed through the lobby and got on his bike. His fingers fumbled a bit with the combination on the bike lock for a second before undoing it. Draco stood the bike up, got on it, and booked it back home. He must have looked quite the sight, because his mom took one look at him and immediately sent him to bed. "I'll get you some ramen," she promised as she hustled him toward his room. Under other circumstances, Draco would have protested, but considering what had just happened, he was pretty sure that it would be best for him to sleep on it. The next couple of days, the vision didn't come back. College as usual. College was as usual. Reasonable homework, nothing too strenuous. Draco got out to hang out with his friends, do some editing on a novel he was trying to write with one of his buddies. Normal stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary. Editing the novel was going slower than anticipated. A lot of the details that he needed to set in place earlier, but had forgotten about in the thrill of writing. Then they started up again. Then the visions started up again. And these were really bad. The first few times it was okay, during dinner or while he was asleep. However, the time it made him crash into a car on the street got his parents worried. It wasn't too bad, thankfully, the crash at least. The vision was pretty terrifying, though. Oh. He was riding his bike, one earbud in his ear, so that he could hear if a car came up behind him, rocking out to a really good song. Then the vision of riding a small, compact horse struck his mind like a wrecking ball. Draco almost fell out of his seat, off the saddle. But thankfully, the horse knew what it was doing better than he did. The creature shifted underneath him in order to keep him in the saddle, and almost as if without thinking. Draco looked around frantically and saw a horde of fur-clad men riding shaggy horses and strange, twisted humanoid creatures running alongside the horses, keeping pace despite their disadvantage of being on foot. Most of the warriors wore armor, but more did not. They were thundering across a stony barren plain, hooves and feet kicking up dust as they charged at full speed towards some massive force in the distance. The sun was obscured by massive black clouds. Draco could make up a line of soldiers on foot, wearing weird, thick green, bumpy armor with huge shields and spears. The riders on Draco's side raised glistening swords and charged, raising up a blood-curdling scream. In. Just as they raised their shields, a massive flying creature swept from the roiling clouds above them, along with four slightly smaller creatures. Draker gasped as what the creatures were, finally registered in his shocked mind. He stared, oblivious to the battle that was happening around him as the 5 dragons were swooping at the 5 dragons that were swooping toward the heavily armored line of men. The dragons' roars in streams of lightning swept downward toward the horsemen from the massive creature's maws. The men and twisted creatures swung their swords, electricity crackling echoed around them as they charged. Suddenly the dragons came out of the sky on the other side, large, cumbersome beasts with very thick armor-like scales, as opposed to the much faster-moving dragons with large frills and its set of 4 feathering wings each. Lightning danced around the smaller creatures as they unloaded bursts of lightning at their larger, more heavily armored opponents. Their enemies returned fire with streams of incredibly bright, blinding white light. Draco had to cover his eyes to protect them, but he still got a pretty bad after-image splashed across his eyes. Before the 2 armies collided, the vision ended, with Draco staring down a large truck. He yelled and tried to swerve as the car honked loudly. The bike swerved out of control, and he tumbled onto the asphalt. A circular metal thing, probably the bike frame, struck his head, and he blacked out. The next thing that he knew, he was on his back. People were looking down at him, one guy checking his pulse to make sure he was alive. Draco tried to move, but his body rejected that idea just as it rejected his mother's tacos the night before. "He's awake!" One of the people, a lady, Draco assumed, yelled. She sounded surprised and shocked. "Are you okay, man?" And then the guy checking Draco's pulse asked, putting his hand on his head. "Do I look okay?" Draco mumbled, only half sarcastically. It didn't come out as more than a groan, though. "Call 911, the man said. "He needs a hospital." "Already on it." Another woman raised her hand in acknowledgement of the question. "You're going to be okay," the man said, patting Draco on the forehead comfortingly. Draco moaned something unintelligible in response. The next days were brutal. While he was in the hospital, even more visions invaded his mind. They weren't as bad as the one that caused him to hit the car. They were pretty peaceful, actually. He was either lying in a large stone room with several sick beds lined along the walls, or in a flower-adorned, sheltered garden that smelled like the sweet smell of spring and summer. Always with those lizardy-looking dragons flying overhead. No matter how suited the vision, Draco always came out of it with a surprised yell and flailed around for a few seconds before calming down. They felt so real, but they couldn't be. No matter how vivid, no matter how much he felt, saw, heard, or even tasted, he couldn't believe that anything he saw was real. He tried doing his homework for Creative Writing 205 in an attempt to have some kind of outlet for his dreams. It helped somewhat be able to record what he saw, but it didn't make anything easier. Several times throughout at several points throughout the time he was recuperating, which was about 5 days, nurses and doctors tried to talk to him, but Draco huddled in himself, trying to keep himself in reality and prevent the visions from happening. Still, they happened. 2 or 3 were horrible. He was lying on a bed of treasure with a massive snake-like dragon eyeing him for like a meal. Finally, it snapped at him, and the vision closed just before the creature's teeth closed on him. Eventually, they got him to open up enough to get his name and address off him. His phone had been too broken to extract any of his contact info, so they'd had to wait for a while. After the doctor made a couple calls, Draker only had to wait again a few minutes for his parents to show up. His mom was crying, and his dad held Draker tightly against his chest in a tight embrace. All the way home, Draker's dad rocked him as gently as a baby. "What happened to you?" his mom asked, sounding on the brink of tears. Tears again. "The doctor said you hit a car." Her voice quavered. Draker didn't answer. It had two visions during the phone call and even in the car. He was used to them by now. He didn't flay around anymore. His pulse and breathing just accelerated beyond what it should be, even if he had run a marathon. This one was peaceful. He was sitting at the head of a caravan, a boxy house wagon rolling across the sand. A mask of thickly scaled dragons gliding serenely over them like a sentinel. This time he didn't feel threatened. He felt safe, as if the creature above him was a friend or something like that. The next few days were very hard. He was still recuperating from a couple broken bones, but not seriously broken, just small fractures. Still painful, though. More visions, each one taking more out of him physically for some reason. He slowly became weaker and weaker, his skin became more and more ashen pale. Even after a year, Draker's bones had difficulty healing despite the medications. After a while, Draker or his parents decided it would be good for him to get some fresh sea air to help with his condition. The plane ride was horrible. Horrible. Draker normally liked plane rides, but he was so jounced around by the turbulence that jolts of pain shot through his arm and leg each time. Several more visions, most of them were flying through the air. That's too bad, just drifting over sand dunes or mountains that were covered in massive pine forests. Each time he jolted slightly, making the turbulence even worse. Each time that he jolted, his mom gave him a concerned look and patted his unbandaged arm soothingly. As they rented out, it was pretty nice, Draker had to admit. His mom patted his arm again. "It's going to be okay," she said. Draker swallowed and nodded, despite the fact he didn't believe it. What would change with the injuries that hadn't worked out back in the Midwest? However, something about Florida did change. He started to get better. He didn't feel quite as weak as he had been. Things did go slowly, but it was better than nothing. One day, though, as Draker was walking for his therapy for the first time without a cast, he began to notice something about the glades near his house. They seemed to be calling to him. For a long time he ignored it, but eventually he decided to go there. And that's the end.
Okay, so I really don't have much in way of commentary.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's partially because I'm also kind of drained.
Hey,
Yeah,
fair
same.
enough.
I would say like there's a certain, well, maybe you're drained as well, but like the way that you were reading it is like you would kind of like draw off,
Yeah.
and then I can hear you typing and stuff, and that interrupts the flow, and it makes it harder
Yeah.
for me to really
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I probably need to just edit, and I probably need to do less editing at the moment. It's just compulsive, unfortunately.
Yeah, I imagine, yeah.
Just
Yeah, you should try and resist that impulse. Everyone else can. I don't know why you don't get somewhat self-conscious when we can hear your keyboard and you have to pause when reading. I just don't understand how you can do that. Because if I try doing that, I'm like, shit, everyone can hear me correcting a mistake.
Yeah, I verbally apologize whenever I fuck up like that because yeah, I know y'all are over here partially to be entertained, and I screwed up. So
yeah. Yeah, I probably need to just wait and see. Fix stuff after the fact.
Maggie May makes at least 80K a year. What in the world?
yeah, god damn it, don't bother looking at the chat.
Yeah.
They provide
Like
such.
last time I made that mistake, aspiring of memed on the story being like, "Was CS chest? Okay, got it. That's the story." And then they proceeded to spend the rest of the time shitting on the fact that I even mentioned a part of her body at all.
Hey, I get that in the comments I don't give any good criticism, but that's because I'm on here, so why the fuck would I put anything meaningful in there? The rest do, like Count and Trip and the people who aren't here. So look at there. Like Vantic said something that was worthwhile. Axula, if he was still here, normally does.
I'm assuming Axel is still over here. It'd be kind of rude for him to just dip.
Yeah, I think I agree with like you read better when you focus on the story more than editing.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll
And
just
you
put
just gotta
this in.
roll with the mistakes.
Yeah. I think what I'm going to do is I'm gonna do. I think it's somewhere in here. Should be eggs in writing, I suppose. What the? Oh. 1 second. Okay, let me actually. I'm going to be putting this in the aids in writing, in the beta reading section. If anybody wants to take a look at it and edit it, the written version is publicly available.
Cool.
Sure.
Leo.
All right, and anybody can take a look at it. It's nowhere near finished, and if anybody is aware of Magic: The Gathering, then you'll notice a few of the Tarkir references.
Huh.
Is because I played a lot of Magic Gathering when I was on my mission, and yeah, I really like the idea of the Tarkir storyline in Magic Gathering, and the character of Nicol Bolas mixed with a bit of Infinity Blade.
I don't know what any of those things are, so there we go. That's probably why I was a bit out of the loop.
Oh no, this is not even remote. It's basically just a normal kid gets isekai'd into the world of Tarkir from the real world.
Oh fuck! Of course, he's getting isekai'd. That's why he got freaking hit by a goddamn truck.
Yeah.
God damn it, Dunn. At least the least you could do is not have Truck Chan show up. God damn it. Truck Chan is already claiming enough bodies as it is, Dunn. You don't need to give him any more.
So it's actually funnier. I actually am drawing from a personal experience with that one.
Oh.
I actually was trying to bike across 7 lanes of traffic because it was empty, and an empty section. I was late for class, and just as I was leaving, a car went right past me, and I hit into it, and then went right over. Apparently, did some kind of backflip over the back of the car, and the next thing I know, something hits the back of my head. I black out for a few seconds, and the next thing I know, I'm lying on my back on the asphalt with my bike 5 feet away from me, higher up the what is it? Higher up the road, out on the hill. So, yeah.
Nobody got you into a hospital? What a bunch of assholes.
Well, they did try to get me to a hospital, and I did get bandaged up, but my injuries weren't severe. It was just a bunch of road. It was just some road rash.
No. Well, somebody's gonna get admitted with that sound. What the heck's going on over there?
Yeah, somebody just shoot a gun. That was a gun, right?
I don't
Sounded
know.
like it. Well, I think that we will conclude it there. So tonight we're going to be recording our penultimate House of the Dragon Season 1 episode. I'm going to be trying my best to figure out a way to sufficiently edit the Rings of Power reaction reviews. We're also going to be doing a stream on that Tuesday at
Bro, you've got to keep in my Shadowversity moment. You got to keep that in.
I know. It's just a matter of obscuring things. It's just a matter of obscuring stuff. That's the main thing. I just know that this was very relevant throughout.
Bleeding astronomical moron! What are you doing? I'm done. I'm broken. This thing has killed me.
You're welcome.
Oh my goodness.
For everyone.
Also, these two are very relevant in regards to the leaks.
Everything they said was true.
Oh god.
Who was that? That looked familiar.
That's Brad Jones in regards to Single Moms Club by Tyler Perry. Regarding his two friends, Dave and Brian, have been subjected to several Tyler Perry movies. And he opened up his Single Moms Club review by saying, everything they said about this dumb craps movies was true.
Yeah, all right, I got you.
Has anyone noticed that since things have started to get crappier, the leaks have been getting more and more accurate for some reason?
They're trying to warn us or something.
I honestly am suspecting inside industry sabotage. Either that or they're just trying. It's either that there are people who are being bribed to leak this stuff online to make the company look bad. Or there's industrial spies and espionage just going on.
I can believe that from Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker was pretty much one-to-one accurate. It was actually worse than the leaks. The leaks gave better context.
Yeah.
I can't believe how bad Rise was. I mean, like it's all no. It's like there's something evil going on. That's the only conclusion I can come to as a basement dweller. There's something evil. You know, it's like the dark side of the Force is rising. You know, this conspiracy of.
And unfortunately, they keep getting worse because Multiverse of Madness was worse than Rise of Skywalker.
What?
Multiverse of Madness, the film that somehow got me upset that they disrespected characters that I never cared about or even knew about.
Right.
Good job.
Dunn and Tarek enjoyed Multiverse of Madness, by the way.
I didn't.
I imagine
I
it's
enjoyed
ironic.
parts of it, but there were very frustrating elements. Like I predicted most of the ending. It was actually Becca and Tarek that enjoyed it. I was like, eh. But as I think about it, it gets even worse the more I think about it.
What? Speaking of which, I'm going to go and plug Mahler's Unbridled Cataclysm for the Multiverse of Madness because he did a very good job of breaking it down. Literally everything. Swear to
More
God,
entertaining than the movie, genuinely.
Yes, and it's about twice the length, apparently somehow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Twice the length, but double the enjoyment.
Yep. Well, I think we'll end it for today. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you on the next time. Bye.
Yeah, thanks.
See
thanks
you,
for doing it, Done.
See ya.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Take it
night.
easy, fellas.
Yeah.
Enough! Kill me! Just end it. No.